Awesome. Yeah, me too.
Okay, you want to jump into it? Do you have any questions for me before we start?
Oh, I guess not really. Well, I guess like what made you interested in all of this stuff? I'm just really curious about that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, so I had my own sort of you could call awakening experience in the year 2013, and I've been, I think, for the last 4 or 5 years doing this YouTube channel just as a way to just as like a way to help myself essentially talk through certain things that I'm experiencing, talk through things that I'm discovering and learning, and also just kind of like demonstrate how you can live according to your own beliefs. You don't have to follow another person's story. You can be your own author, and so that's the reason why I do the YouTube channel. And then talking to people like yourself, I just find it super interesting to meet other people who have had their own unique awakening experiences. I learn a lot, and I also think it's great for people because right now there's lots of us out there, people who are going through it in different stages, and people who are just going through it and they don't have a frame of reference. If they stumble onto one of these videos, it might give them the sort of point of reference that they were looking for to say, oh, okay, so this is on the spectrum of normalcy. I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one who's going through this. And so I think that's another sort of part of why I want to do this.
Cool. Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, if you're ready,
Yeah.
then we can just jump right into it. So the
Sure.
big questions podcast, the biggest question of them all, the one that takes people all kinds of interesting places, is the one I'm going to ask you right now. Who are you?
Oh man, that is a tough question. Um, that's a question I've been asking myself a lot, especially over the last few years. Like, who am I? What am I? Why am I here? What is it like? Is there any purpose to any of this? Um, I don't know. I think of myself as a seeker in a lot of ways. Like, I'm just always looking for something. I want to learn as much as I can about as much as I can. I want to try everything and go everywhere. Um, so a lot of it has been, I mean, and a lot of that from a lot of my life was focused externally. And then really over the last handful of years, it's been focused internally. Like, what is, like, I want to explore my insides. Like, what is this? Why is this? How does all of this work? I've gotten really into like Jungian psychology. Um, and so a lot of that about like, you know, plummeting into the depths of yourself, and exploring a lot of that. And that's really, yeah, that's been a huge, I don't know, that's, I guess that's kind of how I see myself at the moment, is
Cool.
like my place in life as a seeker. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. And just for the sake of convention, what's your name?
Deanna Bennett.
Awesome. For the record.
Yes, for the
Cool.
record.
Yeah. So very common theme there, this shift that you described from seeking externally to seeking internally.
Hmm.
Was there a catalyst for that shift? Did something happen to you that caused you to turn and sort of reorient yourself away from the external world and start to seek within yourself?
A lot of it for me was I had a really traumatic childhood growing up. And so I started therapy at 12. Um, so really in talking with therapists, that's when I first started to like self-actualize and become a lot more self-aware. And so seeing therapists off and on through growing up, that really kind of started the self-awareness part of it. Um, and then let's see, almost 6 years ago now, I had um, like a really intense, like this was my spiritual awakening probably. Um, this really intense episode with psilocybin. It was the first time I had tried psilocybin, and I had this incredible journey that literally I physically went into myself, where I was this universe inside myself. Um,
Beautiful.
and I met God, and spoiler alert, she's me. Um,
I think
so,
we can just wrap up the conversation. I think
right, we're done.
you
That's
just
it.
nailed it. There you
Ah,
go. Oh, beautiful. That's awesome. Good for you.
yeah,
Yeah. Please tell me
yeah.
more.
Oh yeah. So that was just it. That was just this really intense, like, um, I don't. And for me, themes of death kept kind of coming up in that trip. I kept seeing a skull, like a skull with a flower crown, and I couldn't make sense of it. It just kept popping up while I was going through all these visions in myself. And then at one point I started laughing hysterically because I realized, oh, it's a skull and she's been smiling and laughing at me and she's winking at me, but I couldn't tell because she doesn't have it. She doesn't have a face.
Yeah,
And that was
nice.
just like in that dream, it was just like, or in that vision, it was like the most hilarious thing. Like, of course, like I was kind of freaked out by this skull, but of course it's supposed to be this funny, welcoming, warming thing. I just couldn't tell because she didn't have skin.
So the idea is that like death was smiling and winking at you, like you don't need to be worried about her, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like it's all a cosmic joke that we're so afraid of this
yeah,
inevitability that we will all come to, that is just part of this life, and we're so scared of it for these ridiculous reasons.
yeah.
um
Interesting.
yeah, yeah, so that was kind of um yeah, that was my spiritual awakening. And it took me a couple years of kind of slowly getting into it to really, really embrace that, like, okay, this was the awakening of a spiritual side of me. Because I had been very
Right.
like agnostic before that.
That was my next question. Before this, what was your relationship to religion, spirituality, and things of that nature? So you were agnostic, but were you how did you view those types of ideas, like God, for example? Were you kind of atheistic or leaning in that direction, or how was your view on that?
Oh, it was a complex kind of thing. I grew up Mormon, and I was in that for the first like 20 years or so of my life. And so I had a really complex, and then coming out of that, so I had this really complex relationship with God and the idea of deities in general. And I had gotten to a point in my life where I was very much like, I don't know that there is anything, and I don't know that that matters, and whatever, I still have to live my life, whether there is something externally or not. So I had just kind of gotten to a place where I was like, I don't know, maybe there's something out there that'd be kind of cool, but maybe there's not, and that's okay too.
But
Um,
you were pretty decided on the concept of God as proposed by the Mormon Church. Like that part of that concept of God, you had kind of gotten over, it sounds like.
yes, yeah,
Okay.
that very like kind of hardcore Christian Yahweh vision
The
was not
invisible
really.
sky daddy, as I call him.
Yes, yeah,
He's like, don't touch
yeah,
yourself. I'm watching
yeah.
you.
I made you this way, but if
Yeah.
you do these things that I made you to do, you're punished. Yeah, it
You
made no
got
sense.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And
sense.
logical consistency and coherence are not at the top of the list there in terms of
Yeah,
priorities for those religions, but that's okay. I mean, it's a
yeah,
path. And
yeah. True.
I always tell people, like, my parents are Jehovah's Witnesses, so they're, pretty fundamentalist to some extent, I guess. But
Mm-hmm.
over the years, I've come to see it as a blessing for them. And even though I don't, align with their views, it's like at least they have a path, right?
Yeah, yeah, if whatever you're living, if it fulfills you in some way, makes you a better person, go for it. Like, I
Hmm.
don't care what you believe. That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
But just for the record, I'm with you.
Cool, okay.
I've seen it. I've experienced it. I feel it, and I know the truth of it in my bones. But
Yeah,
yes, so
yeah,
yeah, we've had similar experiences there, obviously. But so
yeah.
yeah, so you went from kind of having this kind of a sort of ambivalent sort of relationship or view of God and religion and all these things to experiencing the truth, not just reading about it in a book, but actually living it. And
Hmm.
so, what have the last 6 years been like for you since having that kind of psilocybin experience?
Oh man, I've changed so many things in my life. I thought that I thought that I had kind of like removed myself somewhat from the world, and I think on some level I had, just from having therapy and like being able to self-actualize kind of early. But I really, like, I shifted so many things. I was in a marriage that was very toxic. That after that experience, it became very clear to me how toxic the relationship was. So I got out of that. I completely changed career paths. I work now as an independent contractor, and I work for myself. I don't have bosses. I don't want to be a part of the consumerist machine. Um, I don't know. I've simplified my living so much. Like, I just really don't care about money or things or stuff or status. Like, that stuff just doesn't, it makes no sense to me. It doesn't matter to me at all
Right.
anymore.
But that's
Um,
different for you. That wasn't always the case for you.
yeah, yeah, not as much. I mean, even though, like, I don't know, I felt like I wasn't super obsessed with those things to begin with, I still realized like how much they influenced me and
Right.
influenced my life and my decisions. And so really coming out of a lot of that, and embracing spirituality. Like, I really had to open up myself to the idea of like, okay, I thought, things were kind of one way, and now I'm feeling like things are another way. Like now feeling connected to source, feeling connected to the universe, to whatever, whereas before I felt a big disconnect. And so really making spirituality a part of my life, and really, I don't know, trying to see God in everything and everyone, versus only in specific writings or in specific buildings.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
So that's been a huge turning point in my life. I mean, because of the traumatic childhood growing up, I've had depression and anxiety and ADD, and PTSD for a lot of my life. And so really kind of embracing spirituality has led to a lot of clarity and calmness around those things that I had struggled with for so much of my life. And it had just been this weight on me, just dragging me down and sucking the life out of me. And to get to a point where it's much more well managed, where my whole view of the world has shifted enough that those things do not impact me nearly on the level that they used to.
Yeah. You have a
And that,
handle on them.
yeah,
They're not like influencing you from under the surface, right? Like you were talking about
yes.
Jung earlier, and you know how the things that we stuff down, they're still there and they're still having an impact on us, but we don't have line of sight.
Yeah.
So they can do all kinds of things without our knowing, right? So at least these things, you've
Mhm.
dredged them up, you've brought them to the light, and I think that's the whole process of wholeness, is,
Yeah.
not having these things compartmentalized and shoved away in the attic. It's like, bring it all into the open, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think with my upbringing, I just never really learned how to process a lot of emotions very eh, properly, like not in a healthy way. I just, yeah, stuffed everything down, buried it somewhere, and that shit stays with you. Like it doesn't just magically go away if you ignore it. It lives in you. It lives in your psyche. It lives in your body. I went through a period a few years ago. It started probably about 3 years ago, where I started having just really horrific chronic pain. I was having neuropathy. I'd seen neurologists. I was going to all of these doctors. Like my body was just breaking down. I could feel it dying all around me, and no one could really give me any answers why. And until I really went into myself spiritually and really was like, oh, this is all of these undealt with emotions, and that's been what's been causing a lot of my anxiety and depression, is because I didn't manage those feelings healthfully in an appropriate way and give them the appropriate outlet. They come out all sideways and all
Right.
wrong. They just get squeezed out wherever they could come out. So it's coming out in these unhealthy, inappropriate times. And so really being able to say, like, okay, I need to really deal with these. I thought I had dealt with them, but clearly I hadn't dealt with them. I had just shoved them into some other corner.
Mm-hmm.
And so really, I mean, I spent about a year just really pulling up everything I could, every place that hurt on my body, having to go into that place and find what the pain was there and pull it to the surface, and really learn how to let myself feel hurt and feel angry and feel sad and feel anxious and feel angry and feel all the things that I needed to feel that I didn't let myself feel when those emotions first came around. Um, yeah, that was a really powerful. I hadn't, if I hadn't gone through it myself, I would not have believed that your emotions and like pent up anxiety and stress and all these undealt with emotions can come up and hurt you physically.
Mm.
Yeah, that was a crazy.
So through this work that you did, dredging up these things and processing them, integrating them, you're like, all of these physical ailments that you were having, this chronic pain and stuff, went away.
Eventually, yeah, I had to do
Yeah.
I had to do a lot of internal work, and I did have to. I mean, I took every avenue open to me, so I saw a lot of doctors, I tried a lot of
Yeah.
treatments,
Yeah.
but also I really got in. That's when I really started getting into Jungian therapy, and I really committed to the therapy I was doing. Um, yeah, and so I think it was a combination of external and internal things that
Sure.
really brought me out of that, because it was, I mean, I was dying. I could feel myself dying.
Wow.
And I knew that it was going to kill me if I didn't, that one way or another was going to kill me, because that's what mental health does too. If your mental health is bad enough, the consequences of that, if you leave it untreated long enough, is that it kills you. Like,
Absolutely.
it kills you in one way, or one horrible way or
Yeah.
another. Um, and so
Well,
I
and
could,
mental health and physical health, like we divide these
yeah,
things up, which is kind of cute, right? We talk about mental health, and
yeah,
then like, as opposed to like health, and it's like, no. Mental
yeah,
health
it's
is
all the same
health.
thing. Yeah.
Mind, body, spirit. If there's a disease somewhere, it's going to affect all three dimensions. And
Hmm.
so emotional stuff is causing psychological problems, which cause physical ailments. And
Hmm.
so you have to also, when you're healing them, like you said, I like that your answer wasn't just, I did the work and it went away. It's like, no, you actually went and got treatments, you probably, I imagine you looked maybe at like your diet and lifestyle things, like, so you
Mm-hmm.
were looking at it from the physical and the psychological and the emotional, all kind of as one, which is how you have to tackle these things.
Yeah.
I wouldn't believe it either, but I've in the last few years, my wife has done it. She has Crohn's, and she's essentially, she's not essentially, she's completely symptom free. I mean, she had all kinds of physical ailments that, through processing grief and trauma from her childhood and bringing it all into
Mm-hmm.
the open, it's like they wanted to put her on this, like, $30,000 a month drug that's for cancer patients, and
Wow.
she was like, fuck that. And
Yeah.
she
Good.
hasn't, exactly, right? So I've met, and I have other friends who have done it too. So this is not mumbo jumbo. There is something to
Mhm.
this,
Yeah.
and yeah, you're just more evidence, more validation, as far as I'm concerned, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was worried for a while that these things were just going to get worse and that they were
Mhm.
never going to go away. There was doctors. I mean, a lot of doctors I saw weren't super helpful. And so it was terrifying thinking that like, this is just my life now.
Right.
Um, and so, yeah, to be able to get to a place where like I've come out of it and I have so much more functionality than I was terrified I would have for a long time. Yeah. It's spoken volumes to me. And I view health and wellness differently now. Um, yeah, yeah, it's crazy stuff.
So I was going to ask you, for people who may be sort of interested in like pursuing this avenue, say they know that they've got some things that they're not dealing with, things that they've repressed, things that they're not willing
Mhm.
to look at, and maybe now they're listening to this and they're like, you know what? I'd like to maybe dredge some of these things up and see if what kind of effect that has on me and my whole
Mhm.
health. So in terms of like the actual tangible steps, how did you go deep? How did you bring these things up to the surface? How did you process them? Was it through therapy? Was it through meditation? Was it like, you know what I mean? What were the actual concrete
Yeah.
steps that you took? Because that's what people are going to say. It's like, well, it's one thing to say go within yourself and
Mhm.
process, but how do you go
But like,
within
what does that
yourself?
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
how do you
yeah,
process, right? So what
yeah.
was kind of like what was your path there? What was your method for that?
Oh man, I mean, definitely therapy. I have a really great therapist. I think therapy is super important for a lot of that. And a lot of meditation, really getting into, and my meditation practice evolved massively. Because I had heard, for so long we hear meditation, you need to just sit quietly in lotus position for as long as you can, empty your brain of all thoughts. That was impossible for me to do. It's super hard. I have pretty bad ADD. It's hard to get my brain to be really quiet. So I had to really modify my meditation until I found something that worked for me. And what works for me is listening to some very specific artists, just some music artists. Trevor Hall, I will recommend massively. So that's what I would do. I would listen to Trevor Hall and I would sit quietly. Sometimes, like, I had really positive results with cannabis use also when I was using it intentionally for these
Yeah.
purposes, not just to get high, but using it for a connection, to like facilitate a connection to the
Yeah.
divine.
Like
Uh,
medicine.
yes, yeah,
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 ritualized. Yeah, yeah. I literally got off another call before this with a couple guys, and this is their whole MO. They do it once a week. They get together. It's two
yeah,
brothers and a best friend. They go out in the woods, they get lit, they meditate, and then they stare into each other's eyes. And he was telling me some stories. It's like
yeah,
tears, people seeing each other for the first time, even though they've known each other their
yeah,
whole lives. So yeah, man, cannabis is medicine. It's all about how
yeah,
you use it. So I'm glad that you brought
absolutely.
that up. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it has been powerful for me. But
Yeah,
again, I have to use it properly. If I'm not
correct.
using it properly, I don't get the results, and I can have negative effects from it.
Yeah,
Um,
anxiety and things like that, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So yeah, a lot of just sitting in the quiet by myself or sitting in nature, um, and kind of becoming an observer of my thoughts more than trying to quiet the thoughts. I had to just observe what was happening.
Hmm.
And then pick and choose the things, because I would have random crap go through my brain. And then occasionally I'll have the one little spark that's like, oh, maybe this thing A is connected to thing B. And like it would pass through in my thoughts and my thoughts would want to move on to something else. And so I'd have to consciously be able to be like, oh, no, that's the thing I want to grab. That's the thing I want to focus on. And so grabbing onto that and being like, okay, let's explore this a little deeper, and let's explore this a little deeper and a little deeper. And it took me a lot of time. My brain really likes to like trick me out of thinking about things it doesn't want to think about. So
Yeah.
I would grab that thought and want to hold on to it and be like, okay, this is what I want to think about. I'd get a little ways into it, and then my brain would take it in a different tangent. I'd ride that train for a little while and then be like, oh shit, this isn't where I want to be. And then have to get myself back to that point. And so it did take me a lot of training and a lot of work. It's still like sometimes that's how my meditation practice will be, just for weeks on end.
Chasing thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, where it doesn't come super easily
Yeah.
sometimes. And sometimes I have like massive introspective, monumental things that will happen. And so yeah, for me it's getting into that headspace, and if I can grab onto those thoughts and ride those thoughts, and go down, and then intentionally, like I would envision essentially going into myself, like into a dark, and for me it looks like a cosmos.
Mhm.
So I go into like this cosmos kind of area in the dark. And like especially with the pain, wherever my body was feeling pain, I would go to that place and sit there for a minute and be like, okay, what do you have to tell me? Like, what is your story? What are you trying to tell me that I'm not hearing in any other way? So now it's coming out as pain. Like, I want to listen to you on another level. What is it you have to say? Like, what do you want me to know? um and so really going into that, and trying to like find those specific places. Or sometimes when I would have one of those thoughts that I would catch on to, I would start feeling pain somewhere. I'd start feeling a tightness or a pain in my chest. That's a really common one for me, is a lot of like pain or tightness or lumps like in my chest and my throat, a lot of stagnation in that area.
Mhm.
And so sometimes grabbing onto those thoughts would take me there. And so then it's like, okay, why are you here? And why do you hurt? And what do you need? So it was like taking those thoughts, taking like the painful experiences or whatever, to a level where I was speaking, like anthropomorphizing it into a personality where I can
Right.
speak to it. Um, and then eventually it's kind of like my body learned to respond back in that way. So it took, like, I didn't get a lot of responses really quickly at the beginning. It's like my brain and my body needed to learn to talk to each other, my
Yeah.
mind, I guess. And so it was like my mind saying, okay, I want to talk to you this way. Tell me what you have to say, and I'll try to interpret, and then I get an interpretation, because a lot of times that feedback doesn't come back in words. It doesn't tell you exactly what's wrong. You get flashes of memories, you get feelings, you get sensations. And so it's trying to piece together what all these pieces mean. But that language like makes more and more sense the more you do it, the
Right.
more you learn to like interpret it and what all of those different sensations mean for you specifically. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
a
So
such a great description and sort of breakdown of all the different possible ways that you can do it. And in my experience, yeah, you have to find a way to create separation between you and it, right? And so
yeah.
the way that you're describing, like talking to parts of your body like they're separate entities, that's exactly what you're doing, is you're creating separation so that you can actually see aspects of yourself. Whereas before, you were in the middle, like you were standing
Yeah,
in the middle of the forest, you couldn't see shit. You got
yeah.
out of the forest on top of a hill, and then you can see the forest from
Hmm.
outside, right? And it gives you a different perspective. And so, yeah, whether it's like for me, it's journaling. As soon as I write it
Oh
down,
yeah.
it's now outside of me. I can look at it, I can deal with it as like a piece of narrative or a story almost, right?
Hmm.
But what you described is just another beautiful way of doing that. Wow. Yeah. So is this part of your work now? Do you do this for a living, or because you sound very lucid and very confident in the way that you talk about these things? Do you coach people or help people with their own traumas, or what, you said you're an independent contractor. Do you mind if I ask what you do for your day job for bills?
Yeah. Yeah. I do a lot of random stuff. I do event management. I work as a DJ. Also an archaeologist.
What?
Yeah.
Dude, you're
So,
like the world's most
oh,
interesting lady. How did I luck out so bad? That's awesome. An archaeologist, just
yeah,
Indiana Jones on the weekend. No big deal.
like it.
That's awesome. DJ, wow. So you're living the dream. You're just like whatever you're doing things that you obviously are skilled at and enjoy doing for money,
Yeah.
and you're making it work.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it did take a while to like figure this out and make this work,
Hmm.
but it is doable. Like, it is doable for anybody to really like, yeah, make your life work for you instead of trying to make you work for your life. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a shift too, right? I mean, especially in
Hmm.
this system that we're currently trapped in. It
Yeah.
feels like
Oh,
a
for
trap,
sure.
so to be
Yeah.
able to exist within the system and not be trapped, it seems like that's the dance, and you're
Yeah.
dancing the steps. So thank you for modeling that for people like myself who are a little bit more trapped than dancing.
You do also, I mean, an important part of this is being okay with being very poor sometimes. That's,
Well, that's where
I've been very
this
poor a lot.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
and you said like, you're not attached to material things and you've simplified your life. Well, that again, that's the
Yeah.
cost of freedom, because the things you own
Yes.
end up owning you. I mean, that's,
Yes.
to quote Fight Club there,
Yeah.
it's very true. I mean, when you own a house, I mean, rent it from the bank, let's be honest, you have
Yeah.
all of this like upkeep and things that you have to do. And if you don't do them, it's going to come back to haunt you. So it's
Yep.
like you become kind of
Sure.
like an employee of the house. It's like, oh, I got to do this for my house. I got to do that for my house. It's like,
Yep.
why don't you just buy a van and go live in a van somewhere?
That's literally my dream. I want to live
That's
in a
my
van
dream
by the
too.
river. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Just roam around, roll into a
Yeah.
town, work for a couple of weeks, get to know the people,
Hmm.
make some connections, be like, love you guys. See ya. I'm out.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
I have the 3 children
It's a
and a
little
wife.
difficult with
So
kids.
yeah. So at this
Yeah.
point, but when the kids move out, my wife
Hell
and I,
yeah.
yeah, we're going to be nomads. But
Nice.
that's awesome. So you're not living the van life yet, but you're obviously making it work. And you're in Utah, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool. So how has the spiritual path been for you in a place that is, from my understanding, again, pardon my ignorance, I'm from Canada, a place that is more religiously and culturally conservative? Is that a fair
Yes.
assessment of the area?
It is a fair assessment. It is the state is highly Mormon. The government is a theocracy. Um,
Don't
it is
sugarcoat it. Tell me how you really
like
feel.
there's some shit going down in Utah. Like
Really?
we're not okay.
Oh no.
Like, I mean, a little bit. I
Yeah.
mean, we probably like it just feels like we get overlooked by the rest of the federal government. Like literally we're a theocracy. The church runs the state. It's really,
Wow.
and everybody just lets it happen. So it is difficult, and it has been difficult. I mean, my exit from the church happened like 20 years ago. But it takes like a solid 10 years to really get it out of your system, probably. I mean, and so I really struggled feeling in between cultures for a long time. But then kind of once I came out the other side, I've been very comfortable with myself, and with like, you can find once you're like on this path, you end up seeing and finding more people and more things that are also on this path. And so like I have a great circle of friends.
Nice.
And as far as like, I don't like do this as a job, like talking to people about this, but I talk to my friends about this. I talk to my coworkers about this. I talk to everybody about this. I just have no, like, I have no interest in small talk, really. I'd rather talk about the shit that matters.
God
So
bless
that's
you.
just,
Yes. It's like,
that's
don't
just
talk to
really
me
like
about the
where it
game,
goes.
dude.
Yeah. Like I
The
don't,
weather.
yeah,
Good for
it
you.
doesn't matter. Like I want to talk about important things. And so it literally has become such a part of my person that it like comes out of me all the time. Like there are points even when I'm listening to myself talk and I'm like, Deanna, shut the fuck up. Like they they're not interested, or they're not hearing you, or whatever. Like stop, like I just can't
Yeah.
stop myself talking about it.
Do you ever notice when you
Um
lose people? Like sometimes I'll be
yeah,
talking to
you can
people and I'm
see it in
like,
their
yeah,
eyes.
yeah. You're like going. Ah, no, I went too far.
Like now
Lost
you're
it.
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn
Yeah.
it.
Yep. Yep,
That is
definitely.
hilarious. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you don't do it for a living. You don't make necessarily, you're not getting paid to do it. But I think
Yeah.
talking about it and modeling it, more importantly, because
Yeah.
words are empty, right? I mean, you can
Hmm.
say you're this, that, and the other thing, but really your behavior, your actions, what you do is what defines you. So
For
the fact that
sure.
you're out there and you're talking about it and modeling it, that's huge, especially in a place like you said, that's a theocracy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, thanks. I try. My goal, like especially over the last few years, has become more and more just to help people. Like I
Mhm.
just want to be helpful. I want to be useful. I want to help people see things from a different point of view. I want to help people feel better. I want to help them feel more fulfilled in their lives. So yeah, it's any conversation with anyone, anywhere I can help. That's where I want to go. That's where I want to take the conversation to. Like, let's
Yeah.
talk about that. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I love this. This is like you're just another me, man. I love it. You're like
Nice.
seriously, I feel I can relate to so much of what you're saying, like basically all of it. So it's nice to
Awesome.
meet it's nice to meet myself on the path in a
Yeah.
different body, and vice versa.
Ditto.
I'm sure I'm just another you. So
Yeah.
In and of itself, this conversation has been brilliant. It's going to make an awesome episode. Thank you, universe, for
Yeah.
sending Deanna to me, because you're an awesome person and I loved your story. And yeah,
I
I
love
just can't
this
wait to
too. This
share
is
it.
so great.
Thank you very much for
Yeah.
making time for me today. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to like continue this. I have so much more to say.
Well, we could listen. I'm happy to do this anytime. I just got to schedule
Awesome.
it because I got, lots on the go. But yeah, we'll have many more episodes together if you'd like. I'm happy to talk
For
with you
sure.
anytime.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Awesome.
Great.
Cheers.
Yay. Thanks,
Bye.
Ollie. Yeah.
Yeah, my
See ya.
pleasure. Bye, Deanna.
Bye.